It's Terra Papers 2, Part 2, Dana Horachowski, CanadaStreetNews.com. This is the second part, and we are leaving off where we have the Holy Grail, which is the Sang Grail line. It's the Terra Papers 2, Book 2. The link is off CanadaStreetNews.com, Terra Papers, or jrgenius.com/audio.htm. Okay? The Terra Papers 2, we have Magdalene and Yeshua, Iesu, Joshua ben Joseph, depending on the translation. Paul, nicknamed Jesus later. Him named him Jesus probably after Zeus. But Paul was a bad guy. He was a pseudo-disciple, but he was actually a Christian killer and went in, but we'll talk about that. He basically hijacked Iesu's religion and made a mess of it for the Roman Church and their prosperity. But going back, Iesu always wanted to overthrow the Romans. He was a little confused with his mystery school teachings that were from the secret societies. And remember that he was taught by one of the Iesus, the teachers of Ea, our creator, in the desert at one point because he was confused. So when he heard the truth and was baptized by John the Baptist, he went preaching and teaching. And he had children with Mary Magdalene, which was called the Sangre Real royal bloodline. And during the time when they went to go raise money for their ministries in private, as after Iesu counseled, healed, and preached. Remember, this is from the Star Elder Bekti, who is an alien. Remember, this is a crashed UFO story. This is not from the Secret Society or Lawrence Gardner. So go find Bekti and blame him for this story, but this makes the most sense. But in private, Iesu would attack the Roman guards, and they would take their weapons to build money for the ministry and their own army. Their ministry was growing, and they needed to rebel against this Roman rule, this Raw ISIS faction that was enslaving the planet. So Iesu, what they would do is they wanted to build money for their ministry. Iesu distracted the money changers who practiced license thievery, while the followers went in and took the money from the money lenders. Now the Sanhedrin saw Iesu as an outlaw, and they wanted him dead. Iesu's eldest son was caught in the temple. His name was Barabbas, and he was arrested by the Sanhedrins. And I guess Pontius Pilate, because Rome was in there trying to invade their territory as usual. He was caught by Pontius Pilate and thrown in jail. Iesu felt really bad about that and tried to figure out a way to get his son out of there. And what happened was that the Sanhedrin wanted him dead anyway because he was an outlaw. So he trusted his one of his confidants called Judas, which is it's been twisted in the Bible either through Constantine or one of his renegades, or even Paul, the undisciple. But anyway, he entrusted Judas to go and find him, turn him in to arrest him, because he wanted to find a way to rescue his son or trade him off, because the real bloodline was with his eldest son, which was through Mary Magdalene, and his eldest son was known as Bar Rabbi, son of a rabbi, Barabbas, which you get in the scriptures. So what they did was Iesu is arrested, taken to Pontius Pilate, who wants nothing to do with Jewish politics, and Pilate wanted just to return to Rome with a nice clean record, but the Sanhedrin wanted to kill Iesu. So Pilate tries to outwit the Sanhedrin and uses a holiday as an excuse to free any prisoner, thinking that they would choose Iesu, and a mob of Iesu followers plot to his surprise, they immediately call on Barabbas. Remember, Barabbas is Iesu's son, eldest son. The Sanhedrin mob also wants the release of Barabbas, and since the Sanhedrin son wanted Iesu dead, they bribed their mob to further call for the execution of Iesu. Now, the Pilate whips Iesu to recant his kingship to the Jews, and the Sanhedrin riots break out. Iesu will not recant because the original plan is for Iesu to be hanged on a cross for the crimes of the Roman state, the Raman state. So heresy would suffice if the punishment was the same. This is Terra Papers, Book 2, page 14. Joseph of Arimathea, either could be his father or someone else, but I would think it was his father, helps Iesu beat death on the cross by giving him a sleeping concoction, which he bribes the guards to give him. He falls asleep, dead on the cross. You can see that when the guard is bribed, one of the guards is bribed not to break his leg, which is legs are a common procedure to someone who's crucified. So one guard who's not bribed, after the guard gives him that little sponge full of the concoction and Jesus falls asleep looking like he's dead, one of the guards bribes, who's not bribed, pierces Iesu's side and blood's flowing because his heart's still beating. But all the followers are in shock. They know that Iesu needs treatment, so Joseph tries to go claim the body. There's some resistance because it's Jewish tradition that you can't touch the dead bodies, but they know that he's not dead, so they manage to get Iesu's body into Joseph's garden in a cave where he can be tended by a doctor who awaits him, and then he's later moved to a safer location, and that is your story of the resurrection of the sun god story, or the resurrection of God's story. The sun god's Ra, if you want to go back into Terra Papers 1. So that's an old Anunnaki, Anu's grandson who wanted to steal the throne and vowed to come back to do that. Okay, so Joseph takes Iesu's family to the south of France where the Jews establish a colony, and Iesu had wanted to claim the throne of earth for mankind and his children. This is our salvation. He's Iesu, so don't be led into this alien deception that's coming, which is led by Ra, Aton, Lucifer, idiot. So he tended to discard the system and awaken mankind to the lizards, and time worked against him. Iesu died in the Far East while his wife and his children were well. The blood of Iesu survived, and the lizards were still unconcerned about the omnipotent God concept and continued to reprogram his minds like they always do. So when you go into that light in the tunnel when you're dead and reprogram minds, and you see this Sananda guy, that's them erasing your memory, so don't go there, or abductions too. So here we go, back on track. 250 AD, Iesu is, it's the Merovingian bloodlines, which is the Illuminati bloodlines. They become the Fisher Kings and the Avalon Queens. And there's a link towards this. Lawrence Gardner speaks about this in detail, but he's a reptilian bloodline, so I'm not sure if he's got it 100%. So we'll just use this story to weigh in with his truth, and that's how we'll figure things out. So Hebrews, they persecute the Christians at the time in 250 AD, and the Rome is also convinced that they want to hunt down Iesu's followers. So what they do, Paul, who is a traitor disciple, this is what the Blood Terra Papers 2 says, but I know that he was a Christian killer in the Bible. He apparently converts, but he doesn't really. He uses his connections in Rome to escape the slaughter and changes the teachings of Iesu for his own purposes to form the foundation of the early church. And that's Terra Papers, page 15. In 325, Constantine believes that the messianic prophecies are not fulfilled, and neither do the Hebrews, and he seizes a land of influence and power that he can, and he wants to claim himself as the true Messiah. This is the Roman Church, people. The church is hesitant to relinquish the power, which is the Christian church. This is the early church. This is the one that Paul, based on Iesu's teachings, which was manipulated. They don't want to relinquish the power and give him status as the sun god, and they become an agent with Constantine, unaware that Iesu's descendants are alive, because Paul lied and changed everything. So, and that's our Bible that we have today, and then Queen James perverted it even more. So that's why we're fighting over stupid things, because of all this disinformation. 525 AD, Muhammad is visited in a dream. There's an Orion faction that tells him to take over the Holy Land. Remember, the Orion and the Assyrians were blocked out because of Ra and this electronic shield. Islam is born means surrender to God, and the Muslims organize into a military faction which moves in to conquer the Holy Land. 1000 AD, Iesu's teachings are more twisted. Christianity becomes a political power under Constantine. Yeshua's offsprings return to the Holy Land to claim their descendancy in the Holy Land. The Christian church is horrified, is afraid to steal its riches, and goes to hunt for the San Grail, the royal bloodline. The Crusaders are unleashed, thinking that they think that they're going after the Muslims, but these Crusaders are thinking that they're going to protect the San Grail, which is the cup of the blood of Christ. So The church's greatest threats are the Iesu's children. This is Paul's church. This is Paulinian Christianity. And they claimed a crusade launch to see